live now. Are you ready?
I'm always ready. Born ready, Sal.
Born ready, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, guys. Yes, I think we are live. Hi, welcome. Welcome, welcome. I am just had a little bit of a technical glitch there as that happens. Welcome, and what is it, 11 o'clock Perth time, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
That's one.
Yeah, welcome. Now, I'd like to invite you guys to come and, well, I'd like to invite you guys and I'd like to welcome the amazing Caroline Bellenger. Welcome, Caroline. She's on the other.
Hey, everyone. Great to be here, Sal.
Oh, thanks so much for joining me, Caroline. You're an absolute star. You're an absolute gem. I have got the most, I'm so excited about today. I have read your chapter in our book, Empowered Women Empowering the World. I've read it 3 times, and every single time I've cried, and every single time I've thought, if that was the only chapter you were to read in that book, that's all you need. Because so many people right now, especially with COVID-19, are feeling completely disempowered. And once reading your chapter, you honestly believe the amazing things that you've done, and I'm going to rattle off a few of them soon because they're like phenomenal. But from where you have come from, mentally, physically, emotionally, and you've been in and out of this turmoil for your entire life until you've got it sorted, which is now. Because like, look at you, you're simply like smashing it. You know, if you can do it with all the things that you've had happen in your life or the things that you've done to yourself in your life, anybody can. That is what I get when I read your chapter. So, you know, I'm all about resilience. So, and your story is just phenomenal. So can we start there?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
So I guess like for me, and it's funny because you talk about that and even with resilience, and I was thinking about that, like, you know, we talk about resilience, but I don't think we actually understand what resilience is until we have it. Yeah. And I think resilience is something that the journey gives us. So like for me, you know, I went through, you know, gorgeous family, happy family. I can't complain anything about my family life. You know, it was ideal, perfect, you know, luckier than most. And then I ended up with an uncle who groomed and sexually abused me from about 8 to 16. And it was a lot. Anyone who's been through that process, it's a long process because the grooming takes up more, and you lose your identity and your sense of what's real or what's right. Yeah. So when that hit like a peak, and it's in my chapter when I was at uni, and I left university because of that, but I didn't tell anyone because you know, and this is one thing, like I know, like with all the men coming forward with the church abuse and all that, like sexual abuse wasn't talked about back when I was a child, you know, like you just didn't discuss it. And even when I did bring it out when I was 23, you know, everyone was still a bit, okay, it's happened, let's move on sort of thing, but that's all they knew. So it was never, there was no malice. Everyone thought that was the best way to deal with it. Yeah. And society thought that was the best way to deal with it at that time. Thank God now we talk about it and it's open and people can get support earlier. So I didn't have those options available really to me. So
and you would have gone through those feelings as like you were 8 to 16. Do you know, like you would have thought it, first of all, you would have thought that maybe it was right. And then when you realized it was wrong, as a young child, you then would have put blame on yourself. That you would have gone through the whole lot.
Oh, absolutely. For me, most of my life until I got sober and everything, I thought that I was the one who was at fault. I shouldn't have let it happen. Yeah. And because he used to pay me money and give me gifts and all that sort of stuff, like I ended up then obviously with this really dysfunctional, so I had 2 dysfunctional mindsets through all that. One was that sex meant love, and 2, that money was evil.
Yeah.
because people just use money to manipulate you. Money is about manipulation. And to solve both of those problems for 20 years, I just used alcohol, you know,
because so many people do.
You know, alcohol, drugs, and that was self-medication. I did do a stint at a rehab when I was 23, and but there we dealt with a lot of the sexual abuse issues there. So I actually came out of that going, oh, maybe I'm not an alcoholic, maybe I've just had to deal with these issues. So it took me about 12 months. I went back to drinking because I hadn't really worked on my issues. So I think I've always just kept pushing through things. And, you know, I've done some really stupid fucking things. Lots. Lots. You know.
We all have.
Oh, yeah, like I'm pretty benchmark. You know, I hitchhiked to Melbourne once when I was running away. I crashed a few cars drunk. When I was overseas, it was pretty crazy. I lived in Thailand, in Bangkok. Excuse my hair disappearing. In Bangkok, and that was pretty crazy. Like I had a Thai boyfriend who was mafia, and like really I was over there with no money at one stage, then didn't have a boyfriend, had no money. I lived on the streets literally in Thailand I was there for 18 months, but I then ended up living with a family. But I didn't want to ring my parents because I didn't want them to think I was a failure again. Because that's what I thought. I thought everything I did, every time I quit a job because my drinking got too much or whatever, I just kept blaming. It was like this compounding thing on top of me. Yeah. But, you know, I was like quite functional. So I'd get another job. Yeah. And I was actually really good at my job. Yeah. And I was really good I hung around the social world. So I hung around people who drank as much as me. Yeah. So that, to me, I didn't have a problem. To the people around me, I didn't have a problem. Yeah. And it was, so you just keep going. And I think, you know, I had a lot of experiences, pretty horrible experiences through that time with boys and, you know, sexual assaults and waking up drunk in random places and a lot of, you know, pretty intense stuff, which just made me hate myself more, really. Yeah. That's all it did. Yeah. And, you know, if someone tried to lecture me or give me advice, I'd call it lecturing them. But, you know, people would try and give advice. But to me, it was just like I'm already hating myself for doing this. I don't need you to add to that. So therefore, you know, and that's when I went through like quite a few suicide attempts with that whole belief that the world would be a better place without me. And, you know, and it saddens me now when people say that suicide's selfish. Because to me, it was like, I honestly thought it was selfish for me to be alive. I thought me being alive was causing all the pain to everyone else.
Do you know? So that is...
that's part of your story.
Yeah, because when I read that in your story, it gave me an enormous understanding of where my father came from, because my story is suicide. And sorry to butt in there, but that is exactly, because I wanted to say this to you as well. When I read your story, because as a long time when I was a little girl, I would blame and be angry and think he was so selfish for leaving us. But it wasn't really until I really understood, and in the very, you know, last few months, read your chapter, I realized that actually he thought that the world was a better place without me. And, you know, if you can read your chapter in particular, and if you can come from the darkest place that you're at, because I've been in some dark places, but nothing where you have. And you've been there so many times. Yeah. And look, you're still living to live the tale, and the difference you're making now, which we're going to discuss at the end, we're going to plug you. Yeah. What you have got to offer now, because you've got through those, you know, like anybody can do it.
Yeah, and that's the message I want to give, because I go, and I didn't, like, it's only, you're saying recently for me, I've been able to go like, and I think more about, well, what did I do that got me through? And I think I actually didn't do anything remarkable. Yeah. I just kept chipping away. Yeah. I just get up the next day, you know, after a drunken night out or whatever, or, you know, a situation, I go, okay, what am I going to do next? And I think, you know, I always had this, like, I'm pretty stubborn naturally.
Yeah.
So I think somewhere deep down me, I had this stubborn resilience that just went, fuck you, world. I'm just going to get up and deal with it the next day. And look, don't get me wrong. I knew that I had people around me that loved me, and plenty of them. So I always knew I had that love. I just didn't love myself. So then I think I went overseas, came back, then went overseas again, and thought this was the man I'm going to marry.
In America?
In America. But that was a bit of a disaster. And, you know, and I thought I'd got better with my smoking and my drinking, but that then turned out not good enough. Even though, like, he met me blind drunk at a bar in Bangkok. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny how we try and change people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So came back, and it wasn't long after I got back that I fell pregnant. And definitely the last thing that I ever wanted to do was be a mother.
Yeah.
Because people like me don't raise good children, you know. So I went through, well, I was too late for an abortion because I was 22 weeks. So I went through an adoption process, and then I don't know what happened, but at the end, it was just, I remember looking at Amadeus and going, guess we're stuck together. And that's all it was. And I wasn't maternal, so I didn't have this, oh my God, isn't it cute? I still don't have that with babies. But yeah, so, and I think that was my turning point. Even though I didn't know it then, I was still drinking. My dad passed away I went to live with my parents, and my dad passed away from cancer just under 12 months later. So that was a pretty devastating time for everyone. I wasn't dealing with being a mother of a baby very well. I went through a bit of postnatal depression, but I just drank wine and did a IT course where I actually got like the highest achievement in the whole of New South Wales TAFE.
With a cask of wine a day.
Cask wine a day.
Phenomenal.
But I think, and that's the thing, like I find though, a lot of women turn what they call like the functional alcoholic. Yeah. Which probably allowed me to drink for a lot longer than I probably should have, because I still managed to get shit done. So, and it wasn't until Amadeus was older and I was sick. I had kidney pain, my self-hatred. I hated myself. You know, my blackouts were all the time. I was drinking in the morning just to get rid of the shakes. You know, I'd find a glass of wine, half a cup of wine. There'd be glasses all over the house that I'd come across the next day. And so I went to rehab, and that was...
He was 7, hey? When he was 7?
When he was about 7, yeah.
You checked yourself in, didn't you?
Yeah, I was tired. I think if anything, there was nothing more. I had him and he was beautiful, and I'd started to bond more. Like when he got a bit older, you know, we had some fabulous times. I spent a lot of time as a mum with him, just going to the beach, going to the theme parks. You know, I didn't have any money. You know, it was just me. So we didn't do a lot of, expensive stuff or anything like that, but we spent a lot of time together, and he was a blessing. And, you know, he's a beautiful child. And we do say, we have a little saying where we go, he was a little spirit in the sky. And he looked down and he went, oh my God, that woman's fucked. I better go to her.
That woman, she needs me.
She's a
magnificent human being, by the way. He's a credit to him.
So again, I guess all through that, it's just that pushing through. And then when I did get sober, like the first couple of years of sobriety, it's probably harder than drinking.
Is that?
Because, yeah. And that's why a lot of people relapse.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you've got these emotions and you don't know what the fuck to do with them.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn to be angry, learn to be sad, learn to be happy, and just accept the emotions rather than trying to bury them. You know, so I was really lucky. I did a 6-month rehab program and did cognitive behavioural therapy, and it's a therapeutic community. So I learned a lot of skills in that, not so much about drinking. It wasn't actually a lot about drinking. We did AA, but it was more about learning those skills of coping. You know, and that's when I found running and sport. And I'd always played netball and basketball and hockey and swam and did a bit of running. I was never competitive, but I played sport all the time. And when I found running, I just realized it was so good for my mental health. And as that came along and I started doing more events and pushing, and this is where a lot of my resilience practice came in. Because when a run would be tough, you'd have to push through those barriers. And I found that pushing through physical barriers helped me push through mental barriers.
I can relate.
So, yeah, as you would know from sport. And that's where I'm so passionate about that link between resilience and mental health and exercise. And it's exercise, whatever exercise means to you. It doesn't have to be a specific exercise because everyone's different. And from there, yeah, I've gone on, got sober. And as I got sober, my confidence grew, my resilience grew. And that's where I go, it wasn't until the last few years I've realized that every time you can't get resilience, you earn resilience.
Yeah.
And you earn resilience just by keep going. So every time you just pick up, keep going, you earn that little bit more. And it doesn't have to be big jumps, you know, it's just a little bit every day of just going, okay, that didn't work out. What can I do now?
Yeah.
And it's not giving up. Sometimes you go, okay, that doesn't work for me, and you put it to the side, but you keep focused and go, well, what can I do now? And I'm always like, okay, what's next? And having that curiosity, I love life. And I think, and gratitude and all that is resilience building. And for me, with what I've been through, I like to look at it in perspective. Because when things are tough, I look and I go, okay, well, I got through that, you know, so I can get through this. And even if what I'm facing right now, you know, I've had some big challenges. I still sometimes have challenges with mental health. And, you know, for people who suffer mental health, I get, you know, when someone says, oh, just get over it or just do this or just do that, it's not that simple because your whole mindset changes. And you do have control over it, but you don't have control over it. So you've got to be really aware of where you're at. And you've really got to put in place different things. And for me, it might be, well, for running for me, but also sometimes it's just, okay, looks like this week I'm eating and sleeping and that's it.
Yeah. And
getting rid of all the things that don't serve, getting rid of toxic situations and people. And, you know, I'm part of...
That is a key one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of my resilience would be because I've had to deal with some pretty shit people. And most of, do you know what, to be honest, most of that, other than my uncle, most of that's happened in sobriety. Most of, like, I've dealt with some really horrid bullying and workplace situations with some, absolutely shit people. But I've used that to go, this is what I stand for, and I'm not going to get pushed around, and I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. And it's been tough, but what I couldn't cope with 3 years ago, damn right I could cope with today.
Yeah. And
so I think resilience comes from challenges. Yeah. And that's why not that I want them all the time. I would like to have some just nice, no challenge time as well. But I see challenges as positive. Yeah.
That's a mindset, isn't it?
Yes.
That is a mindset change and a flip. Instead of seeing challenge back in the day, where you would have gone, oh my God, there's a challenge, I'll have a glass of wine or I'll have a beer.
Yep.
Now you actually have flipped that to, right, I fix this and then over we go on to the next.
Yeah. And I think that's a key
takeaway.
You just keep, but like I said, I think resilience is just keep going. Just keep going. It's okay. And
like somebody that's not resilient could not have got to base camp, climbed Mount Everest base camp now, could they, Caroline? Like,
no,
how about that for resilience?
well, and interesting, that came off the back of the shit year I had at my corporate job,
Yeah.
which I resigned.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was going to zen around the mountain because I suffered like really bad mental health that year. Had to take sleeping tablets. I hadn't slept, I was just a mess. So I thought like, yeah, zenning around the mountain in Nepal would be just awesome. And I remember sitting there in the briefing where they're talking about, oh, you won't sleep, you've got no oxygen. Oh, you may die if your blood oxygen gets to this. Oh, don't eat this, don't have a shower, don't do that. And I just sat there in the thing going, oh my God, I'm fucked. This is not what I thought I'd signed up for, which is just as well, because if I'd have known that before I went, I probably would have pulled the pin and not gone.
Yeah.
And each day you had to get up and it was freezing. It was like most days at the start was about -10. But on the last day, we lost half our group to altitude sickness. And then on the last day, we actually made Everest Base Camp. And it was, the hardest thing about it was you actually had to go slow. You actually had to pace yourself. So that took, which was good. So it was starting to zen around the mountain. But we actually then decided there was another climb up to Kalapatar. And it was, so about 100 meters higher than base camp, and it's 5,555 meters. Now, I love the numerology of fives, so I went, yep, I'm in. And I remember waking up with Amadeus, it was, and looking at him at 5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning going, oh, we don't have to do it. And I said, oh, but the Sherpa will be waiting for us. And there was another couple who were thinking about it as well. We got there, it was just Amadeus and I. So we were the only two left standing with this Sherpa. I had layers upon layers of clothes because it was -30.
Oh.
Yeah, so we started off and we stopped, the first stop, about 10 minutes up the mountain climb. It was pitch black. We had like a little lamp. About 10 minutes up, because when you're walking, you've got layers and layers of clothes. Oh my God, I was sweating. And then I'm having a menopausal meltdown. So here at 4:30 in the morning is this crazy white woman ripping off clothes, like thinking she's going to die in -30 degrees, right? So I took a couple of layers off, put them in my bag. Because the oxygen gets down to like about 50%, so you just can't breathe. So we were getting like every 10 minutes, we'd sit on a rock, just look at each other and go, no one's forcing us to do this. This is our choice. We could go down if we want. And then we'd stop, we'd have a drink, and then we'd look at each other and go, okay, let's just try and go a little bit further. So it took us about 2 hours. It was 2 hours of that conversation every 10, 15 minutes, to the point where I got too lazy to put my water bottle back in the bag, and the next water stop, my water bottle had frozen. And then towards the top, it's all just rocks, like for about 200 meters. But we were the first ones up there. There were a couple of people coming behind us. And it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So the sun was just starting to rise. So you've got snow-capped mountains right around you. And then you had to literally climb over all these rocks to get to the top with all the Nepalese prayer flags. And we were the first ones up there. So you got like inspired at the end. So it was just Amadeus and I and the Sherpa at the top of this mountain. And like I said, we could have stopped at any time. And I guess that's the resilience. It's not knowing you have a choice.
Yeah.
Knowing you have a choice, and everything you do in life is your choice. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just got to do it step by step. So for us, it was just that little step by little step. And then we made it.
Yeah.
And then we, and then we,
Just like
and then we,
such a
and then we
good
couldn't
story.
get down quick enough because it was so fucking cold once we stopped. we barely got like 2 photos and went, okay, let's go.
How old was Amadeus?
He was 17 when we went. Yeah.
You guys are just truly amazing. And that's not the only amazing thing you've done. So you've gone from, so before also as well, you were diagnosed somewhere with bipolar, weren't you?
Yes, that was like at that first rehab when I was 23.
Yeah, at 23. And you went into that rehab, sorry to do a quick backtrack.
Yeah.
You went into that rehab and you realised when you came out of it that unless you adequately deal with your past demons, they will always return to wreak havoc in your life.
Yes.
Bipolar disorder, that years and years of drinking and hating and suicide attempts, had a baby, didn't want to be a mother. You've come out, climbed base camp and further. Now, that's the first I've heard of that one, when you went further with your son. And then since then, you and your son have both represented Australia at the triathlon championships, world championships, haven't you?
Yep.
Tell me quickly about that. Like,
Okay.
what a woman.
Well, basically, Amadeus, I had him in triathlon even when I was drinking. So when he was younger, we still did a lot of sport. And then when he got old enough to do bigger events, I was like, I'm not going to sit around for 3 hours waiting for you to finish an event. So like, as much as I hate bike riding and I'm a slow swimmer, I'm in. And we just got a coach eventually. We just winged it most of the time. And then we had this opportunity where our coach said, well, if you qualify for these events, you might make it. So you know what, we trained together. And again, we didn't do anything extraordinary. You know, I still had work and a parent and all these other things I had to do to fit in. So we did what we could and then just kept turning up at races, getting a couple more qualifying points, and then went to the next race and got a couple more. And yeah, like when we got in, like when we were accepted was probably, I think the day we were accepted, it was probably even more exciting than being there almost. To again, and it's that even when things got tough, because just before I went, I had to sell my house, renovate my new house, and I had 3 weeks to move. So that sort of threw a bit of a spanner in the works of going to, and then I found out that for some reason that Switzerland had hills, and I'm like terrified of riding my bike on hills. So there was another meltdown. And I often say, like, when we got there, we had a ball and just enjoyed it, because then as you would know as an athlete, you've got to then trust your training. Yeah. There's nothing, what I have learned is there's nothing you can do, and it's life. There's nothing you can do on the day. It's everything you've done beforehand. And I used to get such anxiety about things in the now, but I've learned from resilience that it's everything I've done beforehand that's going to make me okay for today.
And you back yourself and you say, I've got this.
Yes, and that's that change. I believe in myself now because I have. But like I said, it's, you know, every day brings challenges. You know, at the moment I can't open my gym and I've got to stay off Facebook because I might or might not have got a bit cranky again today. But, you know, those frustrations of things that are out of your control.
Yeah, like COVID-19.
Yeah, it's a total, and that's what I mean to everyone, but it's okay as well. And I guess I know the biggest lesson for me from resilience is knowing no matter what happens, it's actually going to be okay.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes we've just got to take a step back and get out of our own heads. And, you know, I'd say for most people, we're our own problem. How we think about life and ourselves is the problem, not what's happening around us.
So just in a nutshell now, you run or you do exercise. You run and you swim and you bike now, don't you?
Yes.
That is a huge contributing factor to keeping your mental health right.
Oh, absolute. So important. Exercise, like just from a physiological point of view, like your serotonin levels, your everything keeps in balance. Your feel goods, you're physically fit, you're physically healthy, you automatically have more energy. You eat better, or sometimes, most of the times you eat better because you're healthy. So from a mindset, it's the best way to get out of your head.
Yeah.
It's like, so you've got the physical and the mental and the emotional benefits. And that's why, like, especially in COVID, you know, it's so important because it's so easy for people, especially if you're not passionate about exercise to begin with, to start isolating in your home and do even less. Yeah. And the reality is it's not going to serve you when this all opens up again.
No, you're dead right. We're starting to see sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's
so we're starting to see in Australia, we are opening now. So one last thing though, so from where you've come from and gone and come up and gone in and come up and gone in and come up and gone in and come up and you're now flying, I want you to tell us with, like, don't hold back, your programs. You've put these online programs, and I've been blessed enough, like Goal Settings, the first is one of the ones I've done. I've been blessed enough to have got into these. Plug the shit out of these now because they are phenomenal. You are a wealth of knowledge and you're putting them into online programs, aren't you?
Yeah, so that's my next step for me, is, and I want to share, so I've got my first one is goal setting. I'm also going to be doing you know, optimizing your mental health one, a maximizing your life by minimizing your drinking, which I've got a Facebook group for anyone. And it's not about, I'm not a anti-drinker. I just want people and women especially to understand that, do you know what, your life's much easier with less alcohol, because we all use it as a coping mechanism, but you know, most of the time it dulls how we feel, and you have better energy and all that. As well, yeah, so I want to share with how I got here, because I sometimes blows me away when I think of the young girl who hated herself so much that she wanted to die, to someone who's so excited about life and just have so much passion for people and life and just getting the most out of everything you can. And I want to share with how I did that. And and I keep saying that I'm an ordinary person. I'm an ordinary woman. And there's so many people out there who think you have to be special or, you know, have incredible support or around you to get through stuff. And it helps, yeah, sure. But you can do it yourself. And, you know, of course, then the book.
Yeah, well, the book's amazing.
The book, and with Sal, you know, your chapter's amazing too. I'm still getting through some of the other ladies' chapters, and Anna the other day. Is that ordinary people do amazing things every single fucking day. And I think it's easy to fall into playing the victim or playing the martyr. And I get that, especially if you've got mental health, and you know, if you've got mental health, go and see a professional as well. Like, you know, do all the right things, but then combine it with all the other things that are available to you, and surround yourself with amazing human beings. That would be my other big key. Make sure that the people around you are the same people that you want to aspire to be.
Brilliant, Caroline. Absolutely brilliant. So you're just an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. You truly are. You're an absolute pleasure. I'm blessed to say I've known you for just over 12 months now.
Yeah, I know. And since it's no overseas travel for me for a long time, I'm like definitely heading to Perth as soon as your premier opens those borders.
I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. So you are just such an asset, and what you are offering, your ripple effect to the world. There are so many women out there that can relate to one part or all of your story, because you have got such a plethora of life experiences.
Yeah, and that's what I love. I sometimes have a bit of a giggle and I look back and I go, fuck, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. It's not the average.
Yeah, I didn't just pick one thing to challenge me.
Nope.
Oh, let's throw it all in. Yeah.
And like, you're improvising, adapting, overcoming. You've got an amazing, you've built huge resilience, inner resilience within you. And you and your son are both wonderful human beings. And, you know, I'm going to pick you up on your BS back then when you thought that you couldn't be a wonderful mother. Well, you friggin' are.
Yeah, like I get it. I get it now that, like, I'm not your average mother, and there's a lot of Oh, you mean I'm the parent? Oh my God, the adult? Sometimes I don't feel like the adult in our household, but that's okay too. That's how I parent. But yeah, and that's it. Look, and parenting, number one, just give love. Give love and support. Raise a good human. And I think that's it with everything in life too. Just get out of our own heads and simplify everything.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming
Thank
in.
you, Sal. I feel very honoured and blessed to be here with you.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.
See you, everyone. Thank you.